guys, your evidence is really important. Your reasoning is really important. Uh, I'm sure you've also questioned, okay, well, how do I get people to, how do I get them emotionally swayed to agree with me? Because emotion is very powerful. But here's the thing, and so here's where you need to understand that can be a challenge to you guys. Some of you guys may be more inclined to try to connect with people emotionally. Some of you may be all about that data and all about that reasoning, but you have to have both of those elements. And so make sure that those are balanced because good persuasion is always going to involve emotion. And so make sure that you access this. Now, the use of emotion, like I said, has to be balanced or it becomes unethical. All right. So if you tend to lean heavy on emotion, be careful that you are not manipulating your audience's feelings. All right. So you want to get them to emotionally connect, but you also want to make sure that the reason why you want them to emotionally connect, that evidence is properly balanced, or else you're just trying to get them on your side and win. And in all honesty, guys, that's unethical if you do not have evidence to support your reasoning. All right, be careful of that. So, combined with reasoning and evidence, then it creates the framework that you want to bring your audience into agreement with you. So, you start with reasoning and evidence in your speech, then the appeal to emotions. All right. So, when you're in your basis, as you're building your speech, make sure that you're not looking at emotions first, that you're starting with, all right, what's my solid reasoning, my solid evidence, and how am I going to appeal to their emotions in this without compromising my data? So make sure that that's balanced. So let's look at motivational appeals. All right. So motivational appeals. Why in the world? What is my motivation as a human being, and how do we appeal to humanity's uh, humanity in general? What are those things that humanity wants? Well, the most basic form, and we'll go over this in psychology, but this is important to understanding people. All right. And we're going to look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs in order to understand people. What motivates people? So, how am I going to motivate them to agree with me? So, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is about motivational theory, the receivers of a message would be motivated if the message meets a basic need. All right, so there are basic needs of humanity, and in order for those people to be motivated into moving into a position of agreement, you have to make sure that those motivations are met. So, for example, with Maslow's, you have 5 different categories of motivation, and you can think about it in like a pyramid format. And at the bottom of this pyramid are your physiological needs, so sleep, food, oxygen, those basic needs of survival that you have to have met. And then on top of that would be safety. All right, so am I secure? Am I financially stable? So anything that involves your physical safety or emotional safety, that would go on top of the physiological. Next is social needs. Do you have a strong support group, or are you great with dealing with all of your relationships that you're involved with, whether it's romantic, community driven, familial? And then on top of that would be your esteem. So how do you view yourself and your own value, your own sense of worth? And at the very top of this pyramid is going to be self actualization. And this is the realizing or the feeling that we are living up to our full potential. Now, in psychology, guys, whenever it comes to living the best life, you hear a lot of that language and everything. And Maslow's hierarchy of needs is incredibly popular whenever it comes to, all right, how am I going to live my best life? That's very motivational in its language. And so what they'll say is all right, if you are in a healthy place, then you'll have met all of these things on this pyramid. You'll have all of the needs met: your physiological, your safety, your social needs, your esteem. But how you know that you have really come to a place of well-being is if you reach this place of self-actualization where you have realized who you are and what your full potential is, right? And we'll go into this in psychology where that type of mindset can, as nice as it sounds, can also have some faulty thinking, especially whenever it comes to your basic beliefs as Christians. Because here's the thing is that Christians, our perspective of needs is a little bit different. The Maslow's is very much based on humanism. And so basically, all right, it's all about individuality and whatnot. And we grow up in a culture where we really have that emphasis. And you have to know your audience, right? And so in your audience, if if that's how they think, and you're not, and you're speaking to a group that does not identify as Christians, that's something to consider. But say you're in a setting where you have a mixture of people, and you're supposed to be coming from a Christian standpoint, and so it's all right, well, how are we supposed to view needs in light of Maslow, and how does this impact my audience, and how is this going to impact how I persuade my audience? How do I play on their emotional needs? With a Christian perspective, needs alone are not what motivate people. All right, so with your humanism, you have, it's almost kind of like we're reduced to animals type deal. And Christians are, whenever, and this is where we go back to this concept of self-actualization that can be viewed as very selfish whenever it comes to Christians is we're called to live above self-centered needs. So it's not all about us. And so remember with Maslow, it's that self-actualization where you realize your full potential. And for Christians, that's not enough. We're supposed to live above ourselves. And so that's something where you see a little bit of discrepancy between, how a Christian views needs and how Maslow, who usually is more humanistic, would view needs. And so some scripture to support Christian views is you have Romans 12:10 says, "Be kindly affectioned to one another with brotherly love and honor, preferring one another." Right? So it's not about meeting your needs. It's a lot bigger than that. And then 1 Timothy 6:6-7, "But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out." All right, so it goes beyond ourselves. All right, so let's wrap up with talking about organizing your speech. So a proposition of fact and value will most likely need to be organized topically. So in your approach to composing your speech, if you're using a proposition of fact or value, you need to go back and say, all right, well, this needs to be arranged topically. How am I going to organize that? How am I going to do that? A proposition of policy, now this is a little bit different because it proposes change. And so with that change, obviously you're going to be proposing a new plan. So there are 3 organization structures that you can use to accomplish this. Your first is going to be problem solution. Your second, comparative advantages. And then Monroe's motivated sequence. So if you're using comparative advantages, the nice thing about this is that it shows your audience members either the advantage of your plan over all other plans. So why is your plan the best, essentially? Or the advantages of each part of your plan over the current policy. So I'm going to change this because this current policy is this, and with my policy, this. All right, so comparative advantages. So if you are comparing one other plan, your speech may deal with various aspects of your plan compared directly to the other. You can look in your book on page 265 for this. You see a lot of this in your discussion about policies with obviously your politicians. Why should you vote for them? And and then they talk policies. Many times they'll use this tactic of comparative advantages. So if you are comparing several plans, then use one main point for each plan, all right? And so remember, balance is incredibly important And you'll find with your persuasive speaking, it may be a little bit more difficult to find that proper balance because you're having to support your evidence, and you're having to think about, okay, drawing on those emotions. And so how do you accomplish that? And so whatever your proposition is, you need to make sure that it's well thought out. So Monroe's motivated sequence, this is one that is used quite frequently as well, and this will convince people that they have a need. All right, so you have to establish that they have a need first. All right, and then once you've established that need, you move on and propose a way of satisfying that. So here is what you need. You have this deficit, you have this that needs to be met. All right, and here is how that need is going to be satisfied. Here is how we are going to resolve this. And that there is a 5-step plan if you're going to use this method that you can use in your speech. So if you're wanting to use this method, they give it to you basically as far as, all right, here you go. Here's the way to get them on your side. Here's this 5-point thing. All right, so your first is attention, your second need, your third satisfaction, fourth visualization, and then 5 your call to action. All right, and so this I like this one. If this matches your topic and your proposition, then by all means, definitely use this one. They help organize it in a way that is really easy. And so whenever it comes to balancing and everything, if you have problems balancing and you can use this will help you balance your speech better as far as how long you stay on certain points. All right, so in conclusion, guys, persuasive speaking is a little bit more difficult. It does require a lot more thought. It requires a lot more knowledge about your audience. So you have to do more research going into it. Even when you may have your topic and everything, or you may not have your topic, but one of your biggest starting place is going to be looking at your audience. All right, and so remember, ethical persuasion requires you, the speaker, to have good credibility, which means good reasoning and a good balance of emotional appeal. So that's a lot of responsibility, so take that seriously. And good credibility, guys, will always point to good character, which makes you more believable. All right, and good reasoning increases your understanding of argumentation, and it includes application of the methods of reasoning. And so if you have good reasoning, that means that your audience is more prone to buy in, right? You're more believable. And so consider your audience again over and over and over. At each point, you need to make sure that you're saying, all right, will my audience believe this? Am I meeting whatever that need is? Will they agree? Are they moving in my direction? And so never try to convince your audience towards something unethical or contrary to God's word. That's just something where, if you're if you're a Christian first and foremost, but even if you consider yourself to be an unethical person and say you're not a Christian, that is something that's incredibly important. And it can ruin you if you try to move somebody into doing something unethical. All right, so be very, very careful about that.